I know I am. I mean, don't you want to hold more gross? I know I do. Listen, if we want to hold more gross, do you need to learn how to close on the value of owning the car, or do you need to learn on how to close on how cheap you can make the car? Yeah, we need to learn on how to close on the value of owning the car. And we're going to show you how to do that. But to get to that point, you need to learn how to bypass price on the lot, okay? You need to learn how to bypass price. You need to learn how to bypass discounts, trade, payment, interest rates, internet questions. Bypassing is one of the easiest skills you could learn. Okay, I would give yourself this gift and you will see a substantial increase in your income like right away. Now, there are 3 steps to bypassing. Step 1 is to acknowledge. Now, let's slow it down a little bit and talk about what acknowledging is. Acknowledging is basically just answering the question, but you got to be careful on how you answer the question, because sometimes we answer the question and give our gross up when we're doing that. For example, if the customer says, so how much is it? I don't want to say, well, we're asking $17,300 for it, because if I say that, what does that mean to a customer? And I definitely don't want to say this if a customer says, so how much is it? Well, the manufacturer's suggested retail price is $17,300. What does that kind of mean to a customer? So when we talk about acknowledging, okay, just put an it's in front of it. Watch how easy this is. How much is it? It's a little over $17,300. Okay, that's acknowledging. And then you want to build a bridge. What's building a bridge? It helps you shift gears with the conversation. It'll help you take the conversation from price back to building value. Common bridges are, by the way, or that reminds me, or hey, speaking of that, or hey, I almost forgot to ask, or hey, before we get too far ahead of ourselves. It's just 2 or 3 or 4 words that help you shift gears with the conversation so you can bring it back on track, back to building value, okay? And then we need to get that control back. Do you remember from the last chapter? How do you get control? We got to be the ones asking the questions, right? And what's a perfect control question? That would be an either or question. Ask a question, supply the answers, okay? And I want to ask a question that relates to the topic that we're talking about. So if a customer says, so what is the price on that truck? It's a little over $17,300. Hey, speaking of price, were you guys wanting to go with more of a base model or something the whole family can enjoy? Did you hear those 3 steps? It's actually pretty easy. Or maybe I'm on the lot building value. Or maybe I'm trying to get the customer behind the wheel to drive it. And maybe they ask something like, so are you guys dealing on these vehicles? Well, Bob, this particular model is one of our most popular ones, but let's do this, okay? Let's get on the right track with the right car. We'll definitely make you happy with that figure stuff later. Hey, I'm glad you brought that up, though. Do you know if you're okay with cloth, or would you rather look at one with leather? Or maybe I'm with a different customer and the customer says, so what is the rebate on the Chevy Silverado pickup truck? Now, the last thing I want to say is $3,500. Why? Because then he'll say, well, what kind of interest rate can I get? And then I'll say, well, in lieu of the rebate, it might be 0% on 72 months. I don't want to get into that hem haul, because if I get into that hem haul, I'm not doing my job of building rapport, investigating and presenting and demonstrating. Hey, have you guys ever heard of Tony the Tiger? What does he always say? They're great. So if I'm on a lot and I'm showing a truck, and if there's a rebate on this particular truck, if the customer says, so what's the rebate, Sean? Oh, the rebates are great right now. But of course, it does depend on the truck that you pick out. Hey, speaking of picking out your new truck, do you guys know if you want to go with a gas or a diesel? And that could definitely depend on the amount of rebate they get, right? It's what we're doing is we're just setting all this stuff aside. Or if I'm working with an internet customer, I'm showing him a car, and he lets me know that he looked online last night, and he knows what we pay for this vehicle. I'm going to acknowledge, Bob, that's great that you did that research. That's definitely going to make things a lot easier for later on. But in the meantime, let's make sure you guys like the car. Hey, speaking of all that research, were you thinking more LX or EX? Hey, that's a great choice. What made you guys decide on the EX? And then he's starting to talk, and now I'm trying to find his 20%. And that's going to help me give this customer a little bit of a targeted presentation. Or if I'm out on the lot and the customer says, what kind of race do you guys offer? What does Tony the Tiger say? Oh, they're great. By the way, who's the lucky one? Is this going to be for you or somebody else? And now I'm back on track, and that's more of a rapport type building question. Or what about the competitor down the street? We'll do 21.5. Do you ever get those questions? Yeah. If I'm out on the lot showing a guy a truck and he says, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, the guy down the street said 21.5. Are you guys willing to beat that? Well, Bob, we didn't become one of the larger Chevy stores in the area with the best reputation by having the worst prices. But let's do this. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's make sure you guys like the truck. Now, who wants to drive first, you, Bob, or Betty? Hey, if Bob says I'll drive it first, aren't we back on track? Guys, bypassing price is one of the easiest things that you can learn how to do. And it's the quickest way you can get a raise in your income. You know what it does? It protects the integrity of the basics. It sets your deal up right. We're going to be able to get to the negotiation with our gross still intact, which is going to give you that chance to make money, sell the car, and keep this customer happy. Okay, we just got done talking about bypassing price on the lot. Please give that gift to yourself, make more money, sell more cars. You know, I was just talking to Joe about the importance of bypassing, and he was talking about how, you know, the average immediate discount given by a salesperson every time they bring price up out on the lot is $844. I knew I gave that gross up. Shoot, I gave it up so fast, I gave it up in my greeting. I'd walk out there and say, hey, welcome to the dealership. I'd like to save you $844 right off the bat. I had nothing to work with by the time I got to the negotiations. Joe was also saying that the average salesperson gives up $2,062 of their gross by the time you get to the write-up. How much is left what the margins are nowadays? Probably not much. So please take the time to master that skill. Practice these techniques. Go back in the other chapters where we talk about this. Get these 3 steps down before we move any further. Now, in the next chapter, I want to talk about the 8 steps so you can make sure that you're building value in yourself, the product, and the dealership. But I tell you what, bypassing will give you the ability to accomplish what we're trying to do in the next chapter. I'll see you.